The rain was pounding the streets of New York that night, turning the city into a melancholic scene of blurred lights and unsettling shadows. Claire tightened her coat around her body, her heart racing as she climbed the stairs of the old apartment building where she lived. Each thunderclap made her body tremble, but it wasn't the bad weather that left her in that state. It was him, the man she was trying to escape from. She hurriedly unlocked the door, locking it right after. Her apartment, small and cozy, now felt like a suffocating prison. The messages on her phone piled up, all from Logan, her ex-boyfriend. "Can we talk? I know you're home, Claire. Why are you avoiding me? You know I always get what I want." Claire closed her eyes, fear crawling down her spine. Logan never accepted no for an answer. What if he decided to show up here? Then she had an idea. Her neighbor from 7B, Ethan Carter. A reserved man, always with a serious expression, but who had helped her before. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and had an intense gaze, the kind of presence that commanded respect. Claire never knew much about him, but she knew enough. He was reliable. Without thinking much, she put on her sneakers and left her apartment, crossing the almost deserted hallway. She knocked on his door 3 times, hard enough to convey urgency. It took a few seconds, but then the door opened. Ethan appeared, wearing a black t-shirt and sweatpants, his hair slightly messy. He raised an eyebrow when he saw her there, soaked and trembling. "Claire? What happened?" She swallowed hard. "I need your help. Can I stay here for a while?" The silence between them lasted only a moment, but it felt like an eternity. Then Ethan opened the door wider and stepped aside. "Come in." And at that moment, Claire had no idea that this decision would change her life forever. Ethan's apartment was exactly as Claire had imagined. Organized, sober, and without excess. The woody scent of the space brought an unexpected sense of security, something she hadn't felt in a long time. She stepped inside, hugging herself as raindrops dripped from her soaked coat. Ethan closed the door behind her and crossed his arms, analyzing her with that serious, penetrating look. "What happened?" Claire hesitated. Telling him about Logan meant admitting that she was running away, that she didn't know how to deal with the situation, but she had no other choice. "My ex-boyfriend." Her voice came out weaker than she wished. "He won't accept the end of our relationship. He's stalking me." Ethan remained silent, his jaw clenched, as if processing each word. "Did he hurt you?" Claire looked away, biting her lower lip. "Not yet. But I feel like it's only a matter of time." The atmosphere in the apartment seemed to grow heavier. Ethan exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair. Then, without saying anything, he walked to a cabinet, took out a towel, and handed it to her. "Sit down." Claire accepted the towel and sat on the dark leather sofa, trying to control the trembling in her hands. "Has this happened before?" Ethan asked, sitting in the armchair across from her. She nodded, unable to hide the truth. "Logan has always been controlling. At first, I thought it was care, concern, but then I realized it was possession. When I broke up with him, he didn't accept it. He started showing up at my work, leaving messages, sending gifts I never asked for. And now, he says he wants to see me." Ethan leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "Did you report it?" Claire let out a short, humorless laugh. "The police said that without concrete evidence, they can't do anything. And Logan, he has money, influence. He makes it seem like I'm just an exaggerated ex-girlfriend." Ethan remained quiet for a long moment. Claire felt the tension in the air, as if something inside him had been activated. Then he broke the silence. "Stay here, for as long as you need." Claire blinked, surprised. "What?" "If he's stalking you, then you can't go back to your apartment. At least here, he won't dare to show up." Claire's heart raced. Living here with Ethan, he was a near stranger. But at the same time, she had never felt such relief at hearing a proposal. "Are you sure?" Ethan held her gaze. "Yes." And that's how, on a stormy night, Claire entered Ethan Carter's world, not knowing that he would not only protect her from Logan, but would also end up falling in love with her. Claire had never imagined her life would take this turn. Just a few hours earlier, she had been locked in her own apartment, fearing every knock on the door. Now she was on Ethan Carter's sofa, listening to the rain beat against the windows as she tried to absorb everything that had happened. Ethan had been direct. No beating around the bush, no hesitation. He simply said she could stay here. And for some reason, that made her feel safe, but also nervous. He wasn't an ordinary man. Always quiet, observant, he seemed to carry an invisible weight on his shoulders. His gaze was intense, as if he could see beyond words. Claire wondered for a moment if he had a story similar to hers. "You must be hungry," Ethan said, breaking the silence. He was already standing, heading to the kitchen. "I was going to order food before you arrived. Any preferences?" Claire blinked, surprised by his casualness. Anything is fine." He just nodded and grabbed his phone. Minutes later, he had already placed the order. Claire watched him move around the kitchen with ease, picking up 2 mugs and pouring coffee. When he returned, he handed one to her. "It'll help warm you up." Claire accepted it, feeling the pleasant warmth between her hands. "Thank you, Ethan. Really. I know this is unexpected and strange." He sat down in the armchair again, sipping his coffee calmly before responding, "It's not strange." "No?" She frowned. He looked at her for a moment, then shrugged. "If you were in my place and someone needed help, you would help, right?" Claire opened her mouth to respond, but then closed it again. Because the truth was that, yes, she would help. "Yes," she finally said. "I would help." Ethan nodded as if he already knew the answer. "Then you don't need to thank me." Minutes passed in comfortable silence until the sound of Claire's cell phone vibrating on the table broke it. Logan's name glowed on the screen like a silent threat. The coffee in her hands trembled. Ethan noticed immediately. "Is it him?" Claire didn't answer, but she didn't need to. Her gaze gave everything away. Ethan reached out his hand. "Give me the phone." She hesitated. "Ethan, Claire." His tone was firm, but not rude, just certain. "Give me the phone." With a knot in her throat, she handed the device to him. Ethan looked at the screen, analyzing the most recent message. Then, without a word, he blocked the number and returned the phone to Claire. "You don't need to read this," he said. She stared at him, surprised. And for the first time in a long time, she felt she wasn't alone. That night was the first, in a long time, that Claire managed to sleep without waking up startled. Ethan's couch was firm, but comfortable. His apartment had a tranquility different from her own home, as if, there, Logan couldn't reach her. And maybe he really couldn't. But in the morning, reality returned like a cold shock. The sun streamed through the blinds as Claire stretched, feeling her sore muscles. She was still wearing the same clothes from the night before, and the cell phone on the small table beside the couch seemed a cruel reminder of her situation. She picked up the device hesitantly. After Ethan blocked Logan, the messages had stopped. No new notifications, no veiled threats, no false apologies. But Claire knew that Logan's silence wasn't surrender. It was strategy. The smell of fresh coffee came from the kitchen, and she turned to find Ethan already awake, leaning against the counter while holding a cup. He wore a gray, short-sleeved shirt, revealing strong forearms. His gaze met hers. "Good morning," he said simply. Claire ran a hand through her hair, trying to compose herself. "Good morning. Did you sleep well?" She nodded. "Yes, better than I imagined." He just nodded back and pushed a second mug in her direction. Claire stood up and walked over to him, accepting the drink with a small smile. "Are you always like this?" she asked, observing him. Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" "Calm, direct. It seems like nothing surprises you." He took a sip of coffee before answering. "I've learned not to be easily surprised." Claire noticed the shadow that crossed his face, but she didn't press. After all, she had her own secrets, too. Sighing, she looked at her cell phone. "And now? I can't just stay here forever." Ethan crossed his arms. "What's the plan?" She let out a humorless laugh. "If I knew, I would have already solved this." He watched her for a moment before saying, "We can solve it together." Claire blinked, surprised. "Ethan, you don't need to get involved in this. I'm already causing you too much trouble." He shrugged. It's not trouble. It's the right thing to do. The sincerity in his voice unsettled her. Logan always made it seem like everything he did for her came with a price. But Ethan, he just offered help. So what do you suggest? Ethan rested his hands on the counter, thoughtful. First, you need clothes and your other things. I can go get them for you. Claire hesitated. If Logan is around, I know how to handle him. She looked at him, analyzing that unwavering confidence. Part of her wanted to protest, to say it was dangerous, but the other part knew Ethan was serious. And for the first time, she felt she might have a real chance to escape Logan. All right, she finally said. But be careful. He smiled slightly, a discreet smile, but it made something inside her tremble. I always am. And with that, Claire realized her life would never be the same. Claire watched Ethan leave the apartment with the same calm firmness as always. He didn't even seem to hesitate, as if facing Logan was just another detail in his routine. But for Claire, that was a dangerous game. And for the first time, someone was betting on her. With a heavy sigh, she sat on the couch, hugging her knees. Her mind raced in circles, trying to anticipate what could go wrong. If Logan was near the building, if he recognized Ethan taking her things, what would he do? What wouldn't Logan do? The truth was that Claire knew her ex-boyfriend well enough to know he hated losing. And now, Ethan had become a piece on the board. She squeezed her eyes shut, feeling fear creep back in. But when she opened her cell phone screen, she found something that made her breath catch. A message. Unknown number. Do you think running away solves anything? You know I always find you. Claire felt a cold shiver run down her spine. He knew. Her heart raced. Was he outside? In the building? Watching? She jumped up, locking the door again. Her fingers trembled as she typed a quick response to Ethan. Claire, don't go to my apartment. Logan knows I left. She paced back and forth, panic rising inside her. Was Ethan still nearby? Would there be time? The phone vibrated in her hand. A response. Ethan. I'm already here. He isn't. She held her breath. Was Logan lying? Just playing with her fear? Or was he somewhere else, waiting? Minutes passed in a suffocating silence until a new sound echoed through the apartment. A knock at the door. Claire froze. Could it be Ethan? Or Logan? She approached slowly, her heart pounding in her chest. Claire, it's me. Ethan's voice. She quickly unlocked the door, and he stepped in with a backpack on his back, carrying a bag in his other hand. I got your things, he said, closing the door behind him. There was no one there. Claire exhaled, relieved, but showed him her phone. Logan sent me this while you were gone. Ethan took the phone and read the message. His expression hardened, his jaw clenched. He's playing with you, trying to scare you. And he's succeeding, she admitted, crossing her arms to contain the tremor. I never know when he's going to stop. Ethan looked at her, his expression unreadable. Then he said something that made Claire shudder. Maybe he'll only stop if he thinks you're already with someone else. Her gaze met his. What do you mean? Ethan leaned against the door, thoughtful. If Logan thinks he still has a chance with you, he'll never give up. But if he believes you belong to another man, he might back off. Claire blinked, surprised. Are you suggesting that we pretend we're together? Ethan looked at her seriously. Yes. The air between them seemed to electrify. Claire opened her mouth to protest but couldn't, because deep down she knew it was a real possibility. But would pretending to be in a relationship with Ethan Carter be just a plan to keep Logan away? Or would it be something even more dangerous? For her heart? The silence in Ethan's apartment became thick, almost palpable. Claire felt her heart pounding against her chest as she tried to process what he had just suggested. Pretending to be in a relationship. The idea seemed absurd. But at the same time, it made sense. Logan couldn't stand to lose, especially not to another man. If he believed Claire was already someone else's, maybe he would back off. But that meant involving Ethan even more in this mess. Claire wet her lips, feeling the weight of the decision. Are you sure this is a good idea? Ethan held her gaze, his blue-gray eyes unwavering. "You want him to stop, don't you?" She sighed. "Of course I do." "Then we need to play on his own turf. Logan isn't the type to give up without a good reason. But if he thinks I'm that reason, he might think twice before continuing." Claire bit her lip, feeling her stomach churn. "And how would that work?" Ethan took a deep breath and stepped away from the door, walking slowly towards her. Even without touching her, his presence was intense, as if it filled every corner of the space. "Simple. We're going to act like a couple. I'll accompany you in public. We'll be seen together. If Logan looks for you, he'll see you're with me." The way he said "with me" made something inside Claire tremble. And what if he doesn't believe it? Ethan gave a small sideways smile. "Then we'll make sure he believes it." The tension in the air was palpable. Claire looked away, trying to calm her racing heart. "And what about you?" she asked, crossing her arms. "Doesn't that put you at risk? Logan might try something against you." Ethan shrugged. "I can take care of myself." The firmness in his voice should have reassured her, but in fact it made Claire feel a new kind of nervousness. What did she really know about Ethan Carter? He was her neighbor. Always polite, discreet. But there was something about him, a shadow in his eyes, an air of someone who had faced his own demons. And now he was willing to confront Logan for her. "All right," she finally said, swallowing hard. "Let's do this." Ethan nodded, as if he already knew that would be her answer. "From now on, Claire, you're my girlfriend." The words hung in the air like a silent warning. She knew it was just a plan, just a game to fool Logan. But then, why did her heart seem not to understand that? Claire couldn't tell what was worse. The idea of pretending to be Ethan's girlfriend, or the fact that the mere suggestion made her heart race. The next morning, she woke up with her mind still wrapped around the events of the previous night. Ethan had been so sure about everything, as if this plan was the most logical thing in the world. But for Claire, it wasn't that simple, because the line between pretending and feeling seemed dangerously thin. She stretched out on the sofa, noticing the smell of coffee coming from the kitchen. Ethan was there, as if sharing the space with someone was something common for him. He glanced at her when she walked in. "Did you sleep well?" Claire nodded. "Better than I expected." Ethan poured a cup and pushed it towards her. "We need to start today." She stopped, holding the mug with both hands. "Start what?" He raised an eyebrow, as if the answer was obvious. "Our fake relationship." The words sounded so direct that Claire almost choked on her coffee. "Oh, that." Ethan leaned against the counter, watching her. "If Logan is really watching, we need to give him reasons to believe it. We're going out today." "Out? Where? Lunch? Somewhere public, where we can be seen?" Claire blinked a few times. "You're taking this seriously, huh?" Ethan gave a small sideways smile. "If we're going to do it, let's do it right." She sighed. "And what if someone from your work sees us? Or if someone asks about us?" He didn't hesitate. "We respond like a couple would. Don't worry, Claire. I'll handle this story." She wanted to believe. She needed to believe. But there was something unsettling about the way he said that, as if he were already used to hiding truths. "All right," she finally conceded. "Where are we going?" Ethan grabbed his phone and typed something quickly. "I know a bistro on Park Avenue." "Good? Discreet? But busy enough?" Claire frowned. "Park Avenue? Isn't that a bit too sophisticated for a normal couple?" Ethan just smiled. "We want Logan to think you found someone better than him, right?" Claire couldn't respond, because deep down she knew Ethan was already better than Logan in every way. And that realization scared her more than any threat from her ex. The bistro on Park Avenue was one of those effortlessly elegant places where everything felt refined but not ostentatious. Claire felt a chill in her stomach as soon as she entered with Ethan. The idea of being there with him, pretending to be his girlfriend, felt surreal. Ethan, on the other hand, was completely in control. He chose a table by the window, where anyone passing by could see them, a detail Claire knew was no coincidence. They sat down, and he picked up the menu as if this were a real date. "What do you want to eat?" he asked casually. Claire looked around, still uneasy. "Do you think Logan already knows we're here?" Ethan shrugged, flipping through the menu. "If he's watching you, he'll know soon enough." She swallowed hard. And what if he shows up? Ethan finally looked up, and Claire held her breath at the intensity in his eyes. Then he'll see you're mine now. The way he said those words made Claire's stomach twist, and it wasn't out of fear. Before she could respond, a waitress appeared with a polite smile. "Good afternoon. Would you like something to drink?" "Red wine," Ethan replied immediately without hesitation. "Something smooth." The waitress noted the order and looked at Claire. "And for you, miss?" Claire hesitated for a second. She didn't even know if she wanted to drink, but she felt this was a moment to stick to the role. "The same, please." When the waitress walked away, Claire took a deep breath. "You seem quite at ease with all of this." Ethan gave a small, sidelong smile. "It's just a game, Claire. A game we need to play well." She crossed her arms. "And how exactly am I supposed to act?" He leaned slightly toward her, resting his elbows on the table. "As if you're in love with me." Claire felt her face heat up. "Easy peasy." "Not—" "Oh, right," she murmured, picking up the napkin and folding it between her fingers. "You're tense," Ethan observed. "That gives the game away." Claire glared at him. "Aren't you nervous?" He chuckled softly, humorless. "I'm a man. Logan will believe I'm your boyfriend if I act like your boyfriend, but if you seem uncomfortable, he'll notice something's off." She sighed, resting her forehead in her hands. "Okay, give me a tip. What would a real couple do right now?" Ethan didn't hesitate. "You'd look me in the eyes as if I were the only man in your life." Claire froze. Because for a second, it felt real. She slowly lifted her gaze, meeting his. Ethan held the contact, his eyes intense yet calm at the same time. Her heart raced too fast. The waitress returned with the wine, cutting the moment short. "Here you go." She smiled. "You make a beautiful couple, you know?" Claire choked on her own saliva. Ethan, however, just smiled, taking his glass and raising it. "Thank you." He looked at Claire, waiting for her to toast. She hesitated, but raised her glass too. The glasses clinked lightly, and Ethan murmured something that made Claire hold her breath. "To us." The problem was that for a moment, Claire forgot this was just a game. Claire felt the wine slide down her throat, but the warmth rising through her body had nothing to do with the drink. The way Ethan looked at her, as if this moment were real, it was dangerous. She needed to remember that this was all just a plan, just a charade to ward off Logan. And then, as if the universe wanted to test her, her heart froze. Across the restaurant, just a few feet from the entrance, Logan was there. Claire felt the air leave her for a second. He was wearing a perfectly tailored suit, his blonde hair impeccably styled, and that same cold, calculating look that made her feel small. He was watching. "Ethan," she whispered, trying to sound natural. "I saw," he replied, not shifting his gaze from hers. Claire blinked. "You saw?" Ethan took a sip of his wine and leaned back in his chair with the calmness of someone who had been expecting this. "He wants you to react, to show fear." "And shouldn't I?" She swallowed hard, her heart racing. "No." Ethan rested an elbow on the table and without warning slid his hand over hers. "You should seem completely unconcerned, as if he means nothing to you." His touch caught her off guard. Ethan's hand was warm, firm. "Sure." Claire forced herself to breathe. "Does this... part of the plan?" He gently squeezed her fingers. "Everything is part of the plan." She tried to concentrate, but Logan's presence was suffocating. He hadn't approached yet. He was just watching, his eyes fixed on the two of them. And then, as if it were a warning, he smiled. A shiver ran down Claire's spine. "He's smiling at me," she whispered, her voice trembling. Ethan frowned. "What do you mean?" "As if he's enjoying himself." That was when Logan began to walk in their direction. Claire's panic increased, but Ethan remained steady. And just before Logan reached the table, Ethan did something unexpected. He released her hand just to gently slide his fingers across Claire's face, holding her chin delicately. His gaze dove deep into hers, and then he leaned in and kissed her. It was a firm, confident kiss that lasted only a few seconds, but it shattered any line between the facade and reality. Claire's heart stopped. Or maybe it finally started beating for the first time. When Ethan pulled away, Logan was standing in front of the table. His smile had vanished. Well, Logan murmured, crossing his arms. What a surprise, Claire. She was still dazed, her mouth tingling from the kiss. But Ethan, as always, took control. He relaxed in his chair and looked at Logan with a small smirk. Any problem? Logan narrowed his eyes. You must be Ethan. Ethan simply nodded. Claire felt a knot in her stomach. The game had just really begun. And now, there was no turning back. The silence that settled among the three of them was sharp. Claire could still taste Ethan's kiss on her lips, her heart pounding so hard that she feared they could both hear it. But Logan didn't seem impressed. He cast a slow, calculated look at Ethan before turning his attention back to Claire, as if the kiss meant nothing. You've always been quick to move on, Claire, he murmured, with a smirk that didn't match his cold eyes. Or maybe you've had this plan all along. Claire opened her mouth to respond, but Ethan cut her off before she could say anything. I think the only thing that matters here, he said in a calm tone but sharp as a blade, is that Claire is with me now. Logan narrowed his eyes. Oh, really? Ethan placed his hand on Claire's knee, a simple gesture, but loaded with intent. Yes. The tension escalated. Claire felt like she was in the middle of a battlefield. Logan chuckled softly, shaking his head. Interesting. You're a smart man, Ethan. But you don't know Claire like I do. She always comes back. Claire felt a cold shiver. Ethan, on the other hand, was unfazed. I wouldn't worry about that, he said casually. Claire has no reason to look back. The way he said that made something inside Claire stir, as if suddenly she wanted to believe it too. Logan held Ethan's gaze for a few more seconds, as if trying to decipher him. Then he stepped back, turning his attention back to Claire. Let's see how long this charade lasts. He didn't wait for a response. He just gave a dry smile and walked out, as if none of it had affected him. But Claire knew that wasn't a retreat. It was a warning. She exhaled without realizing she had been holding her breath. Ethan was still by her side, his warm touch on her knee. She looked at him. Do you think he believed it? Ethan continued to watch the door through which Logan had exited before responding. He doesn't need to believe it. He just needs to understand that there's no more space for him in your life. Claire desperately wanted that to be true. But then she realized something more urgent. The kiss. She could still feel the tingling on her lips, the sensation of Ethan's mouth against hers. The way he held her, as if he were sure of what he was doing. She wet her lips, hesitant. Ethan, what was that? He finally looked at her, his expression more serious now. A kiss. I know it was a kiss, she said, her face warming. But you didn't have to do that. Ethan tilted his head slightly, as if studying her reaction. I did have to. If we wanted to convince Logan, we had to go all the way. Claire swallowed hard. So it was just to convince him? Ethan didn't answer right away. Instead, he ran his tongue over his lips as if weighing his words. Then he leaned slightly forward, reducing the distance between them. Did you want it to be just that? Claire's heart almost stopped. She didn't know how to respond. Because, for the first time, she didn't know what she wanted. The game was slipping out of control. And deep down, Claire feared that Ethan was no longer pretending. Claire couldn't tear her gaze away from Ethan. His question hung in the air, dense and dangerous. Did you want it to be just that? The problem was that Claire didn't know the answer. Because if it really was just a charade, why did she still feel his touch on her skin? She opened her mouth to speak, but closed it again. Ethan didn't look away, his blue-gray eyes heavy with an intensity that left her breathless. It was just a game. But why did it feel so real? Claire finally found her voice. Ethan, I just didn't expect it. He tilted his head slightly, studying her. Do you regret it? Her heart skipped a beat. He really seemed to want to know. Claire wet her lips, looking away. I don't know. It was the only honest answer she could give. The silence between them lasted a few seconds until Ethan let out a low sigh, leaning back in his chair. Logan didn't believe it, he said, suddenly changing the subject. Claire blinked, surprised by the abrupt shift. What do you mean? He saw. He saw us together. He saw the kiss. Ethan twirled the wine glass between his fingers. And yet, he didn't seem shaken. She felt a shiver run down her spine. What do you think he'll do? Ethan held her gaze. He'll try to provoke you, test your limits. He wants you to give him a reason not to give up. Claire felt her breath become heavy. And what if that's not enough? What if he keeps going? Ethan rested his arms on the table, leaning closer to her. Then we'll give him a bigger reason. Claire frowned. What does that mean? Ethan kept his eyes fixed on hers. It means that if he still has doubts, we need to prove that we're a real couple. She swallowed hard. Are you talking about going further? His words made Claire's stomach flip. Ethan, he raised his hand, interrupting her. I know this sounds like a lot, but listen. Logan knows you well. He knows when you're being sincere and when you're insecure. If you want to convince him, you have to believe your own lie. Claire felt her mouth go dry. Believe? What do you mean? Ethan intertwined his fingers on the table, keeping his voice steady. Like any couple would. If Logan shows up again, there can't be any doubt. Claire looked at her own hands, confused. What had started as a plan was already slipping out of control. But what scared her the most was the possibility of wanting it to be real. She took a deep breath, lifting her gaze to Ethan. All right. What do we need to do? And it was at that moment that Claire realized she was about to cross a point of no return, and that perhaps Ethan had been on the other side for a long time. The way back to the apartment was silent. Claire felt the weight of the decision on her shoulders, her heart still a bit racing from what Ethan suggested. If Logan shows up again, there can be no doubt. What exactly did that mean? How far would they have to go to convince him? Upon arriving at the building, Ethan held the door open for Claire to pass. The gesture was simple, but she was starting to notice things about him that had previously seemed like mere details. The way he always positioned himself between her and danger, how his eyes scanned the environment even before entering. Ethan Carter was not an ordinary man. Inside the apartment, Claire threw her bag on the couch and ran her hands through her hair, exhausted. So, what exactly do you have in mind? Ethan closed the door behind him, turning the key in the lock with a sharp click before turning to her. To start, we need to be seen together more often, not just once at a restaurant. Claire crossed her arms. Like, dates? He shrugged. Yes, couples do that all the time. She took a deep breath. And what else? Ethan looked at her for a moment before taking a step toward her. We need more closeness. Claire felt the air leave her lungs for a second. Closeness? Logan could show up at any moment. He could try to follow you. He could try to talk to you. If he sees you hesitating, if he realizes this is just a game, he will take advantage of it. Claire moistened her lips. And how exactly should I not appear hesitant? Ethan's eyes darkened a bit. You have to get used to me. She swallowed hard. How? He took another step, invading her space. Claire didn't back away, but she felt her breath quicken. Like a real couple would. His voice dropped lower now, almost a whisper. If Logan sees you nervous when I'm around, he'll know something is wrong. So, you need to learn to react as if I were your boyfriend. She tried to laugh, but the sound came out a bit shaky. Oh, right. That should be easy enough. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Really? Before she could process it, he raised his hand and slowly ran his fingers over her face, brushing against her skin with a gentle touch. Claire's body reacted before her mind did. A shiver ran down her spine, and her breath hitched slightly. Ethan watched each of her reactions closely. If Logan saw this right now, would he believe it? She tried to speak, but her voice simply wouldn't come out. Because, for the first time, Claire realized she was too involved. And that perhaps this plan had stopped being just a game for him too. Claire felt every inch of her skin tingle under Ethan's touch. This is a game, she repeated to herself. Just a game. But if it was just a game, why couldn't she pull away? Ethan didn't say anything else. He just kept his fingers on her skin, as if waiting for something. Maybe a retreat. Maybe an advance. Claire closed her eyes for a second, trying to regain control. This... Her voice came out weaker than she intended. This is part of the training, right? Ethan didn't respond immediately. When he did, his voice was low and heavy with something she couldn't identify. If you need to call it that. The air between them was charged, tense. Claire felt her own heart pounding in her throat. She needed to break that moment before she completely lost control. She took a step back, hugging herself. Okay, so what's the next step? Ethan studied her for a moment, then nodded as if he understood what she was doing. Tomorrow night, there's an event at the art gallery on Fifth Avenue. It's a cocktail party, a lot of people, good visibility. Logan will definitely find out. Claire raised an eyebrow. You have access to that kind of event? He smirked. I have the right contacts. She bit her lip, pondering. So, tomorrow night, we'll need to act like a real couple. Ethan simply nodded, but there was something in his eyes. Yes. Claire felt a chill in her stomach. Because no matter how much she told herself it was just a plan, she knew she was stepping into dangerous territory. And that, perhaps when it was all over, there would be no turning back. The black dress Claire chose hugged her curves just right, elegant without being over the top. The fabric flowed smoothly as she descended the stairs of the building, feeling each heartbeat echoing in her chest. Ethan was waiting for her outside, leaning against a black car with tinted windows. When he looked up and saw her, something sparkled in his eyes. He didn't say anything for a moment. He just watched her, his gaze slowly wandering over her silhouette before meeting her eyes. You look... He paused as if searching for the right word. Amazing. Claire's face warmed, but she maintained her composure. You look pretty good yourself. Ethan wore a dark suit, well-fitted to his body. His hair was slightly slicked back, but still had that somewhat carefree look that was part of who he was. He opened the car door for her. Ready for the show? Claire took a deep breath and got in. She was ready for the plan. The problem was that the plan was starting to feel too real. The gallery on Fifth Avenue was a spectacle in itself. Crystal chandeliers hung from the high ceiling, reflecting the sparkle of champagne glasses circulating through the hall. Modern artworks adorned the walls, while well-dressed people chatted in small groups, as if they lived in a world apart. Claire discreetly adjusted the strap of her dress and looked around. I'm definitely not the type of person who frequents places like this. Ethan beside her smirked. Tonight you are. Before Claire could respond, he slid his hand around her waist and gently pulled her closer. She held her breath. What are you doing? Just making sure we look like a real couple. Claire's heart skipped a beat. Because as much as she knew this was part of the plan, her body didn't seem to understand the difference between pretending and feeling. They walked together through the ballroom, greeting a few people Ethan apparently knew. He moved easily in that environment, as if he belonged to that world of luxury and power, and Claire couldn't help but wonder who exactly Ethan Carter was. How do you have access to this kind of event? She asked quietly as she accepted a glass of champagne. He took a sip of his drink before answering. I work with influential people. I need to be in places like this from time to time. Claire frowned. What kind of work? Ethan looked at her, his eyes shining with something that seemed like amusement. Does it matter? She opened her mouth to respond, but before she could say anything, she felt a shiver run down her spine, as if someone were watching her. And then, when she slowly turned her head toward the entrance, her body froze. Logan was there. Dressed in a sharp suit, holding a glass of whiskey in his hand, he was watching from a distance, smiling. Claire swallowed hard, her fingers tightening around the glass she held. Ethan, I know, he said, keeping his eyes on Logan. Claire felt a panic rising within her. He came here just to provoke me. Ethan turned to her. And before she could react, he slid his fingers along the side of her face, lowering his head to whisper near her ear, Then let's provoke him back. Claire barely had time to process it before she felt Ethan's lips softly touch the skin below her ear. Her whole body tingled. If Logan wanted a show, Ethan was willing to give one. The touch of Ethan's lips on Claire's skin was brief but precise, just enough to make her heart race. She felt her entire body shiver, not just from the gesture, but from how Ethan did it without hesitation, as if it were already second nature, as if he really were her boyfriend. She knew, even before looking, that Logan was watching every second of it, and when she finally found the courage to meet his gaze, she felt a chill run down her spine. His smile had vanished. Ethan noticed, and without letting go of Claire, he slid his hand to the base of her back, pulling her gently against him. "Is he watching us?" he murmured against her ear. Claire couldn't trust her own voice, so she just nodded. "Great," Ethan said, his voice laced with something dangerous. "Now, smile." She blinked, confused. "What?" "Smile for me, Claire. As if I were the only man that mattered." It was a simple request, but it felt impossible. Her body was still recovering from his touch, her mind confused between what was real and what was acting. How to smile at Ethan as if he were everything to her, when deep down she was starting to think that maybe he really was. But then Claire saw Logan move. He set his empty whiskey glass on a waiter's tray and began walking toward them. Panic rose in her throat, and instinctively she did exactly what Ethan asked. She smiled at him. Ethan held her gaze, and for a moment, he seemed to forget that this was just a game. "That's it," he murmured, with a half-smile. But before they could celebrate any small victory, Logan was already in front of them. "What a surprise," he said, looking directly at Claire. "I didn't expect to see you here." Claire swallowed hard, feeling Ethan's grip on her waist tighten. "Well, Logan," Ethan interjected, immediately taking control of the conversation. "You need to get used to it. Claire and I go to many places together." Logan let out a short, humorless laugh. "Really?" "Yes," Claire managed to say, trying to keep her voice steady. Logan turned the empty glass in his hand, thoughtful. "Interesting. Because as far as I remember, Claire never liked this kind of event." Claire opened her mouth to respond, but Ethan was quicker. "Funny," he said, his tone casual but with a hint of hidden threat. "Because as far as I know, Claire enjoys many things you never noticed." Logan narrowed his eyes, and then he smiled slyly. "Well, then I hope you have good luck, Carter. Claire has always been difficult to keep around." Claire felt a shiver of pure disgust. Ethan, on the other hand, completely changed. The tension in his body became palpable. His expression, once controlled, was now something dark. "I'll tell you one thing, Logan," Ethan said, lowering his voice in a way that made even Claire hold her breath. "I don't need luck." Logan chuckled softly. "We'll see." He held Ethan's gaze for one more moment before stepping back, disappearing among the guests. Claire felt her shoulders slump in relief. But Ethan didn't seem relieved at all. His jaw was tense, his hands firm on her waist. He was furious. And when he finally looked at her, his gaze was a mix of anger and something deeper. "I swear, if that guy approaches you again..." He didn't finish the sentence, but Claire knew exactly what he meant. And in that moment, she realized that maybe this game had gone too far. Because Ethan was no longer pretending. Claire felt the heat of Ethan's hand on her waist, the tension in his body pulsing against hers. His gaze was fixed where Logan had disappeared, the muscles in his jaw clenched. He was no longer pretending. She gently placed her hand on his chest, trying to anchor him back to reality. "Ethan?" He blinked, as if just then realizing how caught up he was. He stepped back, running a hand through his hair, still taking deep breaths. "Sorry," he murmured, his voice quieter now. Claire observed every detail of his expression. The calm and composed man she had known was no longer there. "Do you want to tell me what's going on?" she asked, hesitantly. Ethan stared at her for a long moment, as if deciding whether he should tell the truth. Then, finally, he said, "I don't like seeing men like Logan thinking they can own someone." Claire felt a shiver run down her spine, because the way Ethan said that was not just about her. "Have you been through something similar?" He looked away for a second, then met her gaze again. "I've seen someone go through it. And..." He took a deep breath. "I couldn't do anything to stop it." Claire didn't need more details to understand. And at that moment, she knew that Ethan wasn't helping just because it was the right thing to do. He was helping because, if he didn't, he wouldn't be able to forgive himself. She felt a wave of unexpected emotion, something she could no longer ignore. She moved closer to him, lightly touching his arm. "You've done more for me than anyone else." Ethan's eyes met hers, and something invisible passed between them. Claire. She knew what he was going to say. She knew that if she took one more step, there would be no turning back. But maybe she didn't want to turn back anymore. Claire placed one hand on his face, feeling the roughness of his unshaven beard under her fingers. "If all of this were real, would you kiss me right now?" Ethan looked at her as if he were fighting something inside him. Then, without saying anything, he did exactly that. His lips met hers in a kiss that was anything but rehearsed, anything but planned. Nothing false about it. It was warm, intense, filled with everything that had been held between them all those days. Claire felt her whole body melt against him, her hand sliding to the back of his neck, pulling him even closer. Ethan held her waist, deepening the kiss, as if he were finally allowing himself to feel. When they broke apart, both were still forehead to forehead, breathing heavily. Claire slowly opened her eyes and saw Ethan watching her as if he could see her soul. "What was that?" she whispered. He gave a slight smile. "I was just waiting for the moment when this would stop being a game." Claire smiled back, because finally the game was over, and they had won together. What did you think of this story? Would you do the same in Claire's place? Comment down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more exciting stories.